Hello, this is Mama Jess, Rites of Passage number 4. Growing up in the surfing community in Santa Cruz, I watched the progressive decline into mediocrity. Steamer's Lane used to be fierce. It was tribal, it was territorial, it housed the best surfers in the world. There were some of the top world-class surfers, and these guys were innovating aerials and doing radical things. I would say the names would be Daryl Verosco, Sean Barron, Jason Collins. I mean, they were truly phenomenal, and they were fierce in protecting the waters. There were others as well, other names, but they wouldn't let just anybody enter into that environment. Number one, the environment is dangerous. It's super deadly. You have got sheer cliffs all around. You've got riprap, which are the big rocks where people can even get stuck inside the rocks. You've got currents. You have got swells that shift. You've got winds. You've got fog that can move in. You've got sharks and elephant seals. So the environment is truly treacherous. And so just on that level of understanding, you don't just suit up, get your new gear that you just bought at the surf shop and just jump in and think that it's safe. It's not safe. It's not like going to the pool. And never mind that you are surfing on a board of fiberglass that is hard, that can cut you. It's attached to super sharp fins that if you lose your board or if you just bail in front of somebody, that board can hit them. I know firsthand what a surfboard fin can do because it cut my nose open. So you're out in the surf, especially on these reefs, and it's barreling and it's heavy. And that board can be ripped out of your hand and it can hurt you or hurt somebody else. And beginners, half the time they don't have the balance to paddle a short board. And the bigger long boards are hard to handle as well, especially if the surf is big. You have to know how to turtle roll and really hang on to it for dear life. Sometimes you're wrapping your arms and your legs around it so you don't lose it. But then, of course, people just think the leash is there as their kind of like safeguard, and it's like, just let it go. But that thing is just shooting around like crazy. People have, the boards are just going all around your head. So you can't have beginners out there or people who don't know how to manage their board because it could kill somebody. And yet, that's what started happening. We had this big .com boom in Silicon Valley. There were a lot of guys making a lot of money. They would pull into the parking lots, taking the best parking spots. They would have their SUVs, brand new gear, brand new everything. And they would show up and think that they could just paddle out. And for all of us who were the onlookers, we were the ones always staying on the inside and letting the masters, the master Jedis, do their thing. And if you could possibly get one little wave, like a crumb, you were just so grateful and it was a great day. But you never assumed, there was no presumption that you were going to sit next to the world-class surfers. They would call you a kook and they would break your board and possibly punch you and drive you out of the water. And so I watched that regularly. And so, yeah, I was always shocked, like, oh no, there's this guy showing up. He's got big money. He's paddling out. He's sitting like he just thinks he can just sit out here and get waves. And the problem was that these guys also had enough money to buy lawyers if they wanted to sue the local surf guys. And they didn't care that these were world-class surfers. They just thought, hey, I've got money. I want to be out here. We all have a right to be out here. We all need to get along. We need to tolerate or whatever and compromise. And this whole new philosophy was coming in that we all just need to get along. Everyone should be able to be here. And what was happening, the city started building really nice staircases so anybody could get in the water. There became more disability access on some of the beaches. So progressively, there was a doling of the edge of the best surfers out in the water. Like they would have to go up the coast or just get away because the surf, the lineup was loaded now with kooks, with bad surfers, people who shouldn't be out there. And then you had the whole stand-up paddleboard scene where they're showing up and they're paddling out on basically a door, which is very easy to balance on, and they're getting themselves in very dangerous situations. And progressively, the locals weren't allowed to do anything. They couldn't police the waters like they used to, which made it a safer environment. And that is what I see happening everywhere. We know the Participation Award has ushered people into positions they should not be. And it has gone, rampant with the DEI, and that now people who are not qualified, they have not gone through the ranks. In Santa Cruz, you had to start at Cowles. Cowles was the beginner spot. And you'd go and sit out there for years. And you'd be lucky if you could get some waves, and you would weather some big swell and it would pound you into the rocks and you thought you were going to die. The staircase was treacherous and it was mossy and had, gnarly rebar sticking out, and you had to be so careful. And you had to be skilled. You had to figure out how to be highly skilled, highly physically capable. But they progressively just would bulldoze the old, dangerous staircases and made it more and more easily accessible. And then after after you were in beginners for like 10 years, or let's say 5 years, then you would move in, you'd be able to go to Indicators, which was just inside of Middle Peak at Steamers Lane. And it usually wasn't the best surf, only on some swells it would be amazing. But even at that rate, then the best guys are there. And you might be able to get the crumbs. That's what you were always hoping for. But you never assumed you were going to get the best waves. Those were for the guys who had been surfing for 20 years, and they went through all of the fraternity hazing of being hung over the cliffs with their underwear, being beat to a pulp, having their board broken, being chewed out, probably being required to drink so much alcohol from a keg that they're vomiting or whatever. There were all kinds of rituals that these guys put the younger guys through. And I'm not saying that it was right, or even, a lot of it seemed almost criminal, but it's how they dealt with the pecking order, that you're not just going to show up into a deadly environment and think that you have access. And then eventually you can move into Steamers Lane, maybe sit on the inside at the slot. But the best guys knew that you were doing the work to get into that position of honor, of authority, of mastering your craft. And I didn't always understand it in the beginning. And there were a lot of us girls that went out there, and I probably wasn't ready, but my friends were the best surfers in town. And they wanted me to go with them. And I was young. I had not had 10 years of surfing experience like them. I came on the scene much later. But they let me in, and yet I got chewed out at times as well. But eventually, there was a degree of respect that you at least could be there and not be yelled at and have your board broken, Steamers Lane is super dangerous. There's too many factors. And after becoming a lifeguard, I saw the danger. And I lost a girlfriend to drowning there. And so I grew really jaded by the fact that it became like a romper room playground. But we had some of our friends die there. And so it became overrun. The decline, as far as I can tell, it's complete, because you have a bunch of mediocre surfers going out. And it's just a massive scene of foolishness and danger, and no one can really get a wave. And I haven't been around there for a while, so maybe that tribal spirit is back, trying to get access again. But really, it comes to a point where no one's really getting waves and no one can get good at anything. So to shift gears onto a larger social scale of this kind of mediocrity diluting an environment, I felt like I was watching this with who became the the voices that we, especially as young people, were listening to be kind of our guides. And I would say that pop culture musicians, they would sing their songs and we would think like, wow, they're just so amazing and they know about life and they sing so well. And, you know, we thought, wow, because they're handsome and they're beautiful, according to what I would say the pornographic standards of our age. We still thought, wow, it didn't matter that they're fornicating around and they never marry anybody and they're constantly singing songs about breakups because clearly they're not capable of staying committed or monogamous in any way. They're into drinking and drug addiction and they're in and out of rehab. Their lives are a moral wreck. And yet somehow they've just like been ushered into a position of honor and authority to be the spokespeople of like how to live life. So just like watching these Silicon Valley guys just show up with their money and their big money gear, and they just jump into the lineup as if they should be there. They shouldn't be there. They kind of paid their way into it or kind of bulldogged their way into it. And I see we've done that in the entertainment world. I'm seeing an enormous number of actors and actresses and, you know, the Hollywood scene and musicians. They have these big political views now when we don't know how many times they have divorced. They cannot stay in a faithful, loving relationship. Some of them don't get along with their kids, or they've had kids all over the place with all kinds of multiple partners. Again, all the drug addiction. When you listen to them speak, they're very poor speakers. They're just not logical thinkers. They're not historically accurate. And just like so many Americans, they have no results, but they're trying to get into the political and social environment to try to fix our country. But their lives, their personal family lives are a wreck. And yet, there they are. They're just sitting at Steamer's Lane, getting ready to take off on the best wave of the day. And they don't have any right to be there. So we're giving people access to dangerous waters. And they're making it dangerous for all of us. So no, we shouldn't be listening to these young blonde pop stars or any of these pop stars. Their lives are not worthy to be listened to. They are not making our culture safer with wisdom, with morality, with a proven life. Their lives are a wreck and they're just all rhetoric. They just talk, and they don't understand the dangerous waters they're in. They're fools. And fools have no problem ushering themselves into the front best seats, right there in the lineup. They think they're worthy and they're not. And anybody who wants to speak out against them is now intolerant, unloving, mean. But it's not the case. There are those who have gone through the ranks and they just have understanding as to the perils of the situation we're in, whether it's at Santa Cruz surfing, whether it's political, social, economic. There are people that know more than other people, and they are worthy to be in that position because they've done the time. And most people who are in positions of authority speaking are absolute, immature fools who have not gone through the ranks. So I've watched it in many environments. And again, now I'm watching it in the political scene. We've got a bunch of young university kids. They're completely brainwashed. They have been quickly ushered into the position of taking on political activism when they're not equipped. They don't have the experience. They have just had a handful of years of being brainwashed, and they don't have life experience. They haven't been slammed into the rocks during a big swell to rattle them and make them realize, like, whoa, this is serious, and the decisions I make are a big deal. I can't just show up into the political conversation and start telling everyone the best, political, social way to be. You have not gone through the ranks. So rites of passage number 4, it's almost like you need to go through the ranks to get to this place. And in these environments, you need to understand the political, social environment. It's a dangerous environment. You can't just show up with your ideologies and think that you are going to have the answers. You're in dangerous waters. You can't be throwing around your ideologies with no experience. I mean, a lot of the guys who were the best surfers, who had access to the best waves, at least had 10 years, 10 to 15 years of going through the ranks to get to that position. So somewhere along the lines, whether it's the parents think their kids need to have access or the parents want access, but people are getting access to dangerous waters. We don't understand what we're doing when we're playing around with socialism and communism on a political level, when we are bringing in people who should not be in this country. We are allowing lawlessness. Like right now, Steamers Lane is completely lawless. There used to be laws policed by the people who knew the environment best, and they knew how to keep it safe. They might not have always gone about it in the nicest way, but I can see in some ways people don't get a clue. They don't get it unless their board is broken because they don't understand that they could die. I had almost died multiple times out at the lane. And more, even now as I get older, I know I'm probably not strong enough to be out there. I don't mess around with that environment. I've been very hurt multiple times. So, rites of passage number 4. You need to go through the ranks and take the time. Even if you think you're ready, you're probably not. You need to take your time and honor the people that have gone before you. Socially and politically. And I feel like a lot of you young people, you need to read Wild Swans by Yong Chang, that speaks about 3 generations of women in communist China. And you will reconsider your view about how we need to manage politics and social situations in this country. So just know that the participation award has ruined you. You think that you're more prepared than you are. And just because you participated doesn't mean that you need, or that you should get an award. The award goes to the best. And they're the best because they have put blood, sweat, tears, pain, agony, humiliations into being the best. So it's again, you need to go back to beginners where you belong and go through the ranks. Otherwise, we are, in our progressivism, we are progressively declining into deadly, dangerous mediocrity. And it's no fun for anybody. All right, thank you for your time, and I'll talk with you soon.